Hello there, and welcome to another video. This one's going to be a new formation review. It's a bit of a sad day, as I'm giving up on the 4-3-3 holding for now. As soon as I can get this one to work, I'd love to go back to it. Once again, it is my theoretical favorite formation, and I really want to play that way, even if it's not technically the strongest way I can play in-game. If it's the most fun, I want to go with it. But it just doesn't work, and we're going to talk about that. So, let's show off the tactics board again here. How it's supposed to line up is in this... well, it's the 4-3-3 holding here, but it's supposed to turn into a 4-1-2-2 narrow. So as we move down the field, this player's supposed to cut inside. Same with that one. This one's supposed to stay dropped off. You have these two moving up into those half spaces, and then the wing backs are supposed to provide all of the width out there. So you end up with kind of a 5, sometimes a 4 up front, depending on where the false 9's dropping off, and then these two are able to make runs inside as they want, except it doesn't work that way this year. What actually ends up happening is these players are out wide here. The runs that are prioritized are these ones, for whatever reason, from the midfielders. So pretty much every counterattack is, or every transition for me, these players are doing nothing. This player stuck back here isn't actually moving forward because this player is occupying the space ahead of them. So this player's stuck in this little, because most people play 4-4-2, and this is what you're up against the most. So this one's stuck in this little 1v2 on the wing, same with the other side. Not really able to do anything with them, so the whole build-up is just hold the ball with him, try to do our little, 1, 2, 3 through, and it's always going to be one of the midfielders making the run through. Which means the wingers are basically never involved, at least not until further down the field, or they sometimes start cutting inside out here. But even when you're doing a more transitional attack, they're still way on the outside, and then eventually they'll run on the inside. What I want is this, the diagonal run starting inside and going from there, rather than staying outside and cutting inside from further down the field. It just doesn't work that way, which is really frustrating. Now, the way this is supposed to work is because players occupy other positions, it forces other players to move into different positions. So if you don't have overlapping fullbacks, the wingers maintain the width a lot more. But because the fullbacks make this run on the outside, it really forces the wingers to move inside. So it's supposed to accomplish these players moving into the spots I actually want them to. And I want to start wide on purpose, because it keeps the defense as stretched as possible. If you attack down the middle all the time with like a 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, then the defense can just be towards the middle and not have to worry about it too much. But you're supposed to be creating gaps by keeping the width. So this run is supposed to encourage this run. This run is also supposed to encourage this run. If this guy's making this run instead, well, you're not really going to get that run inside from him. So the dropping off is supposed to also encourage the movement inside. If this run's being made, then it's okay this guy stays outside, because at least you've got that little passing lane out that way. But it just, again, it doesn't work this year. It prioritizes these runs. It does not prioritize these runs at all. These players do not move in the same way this year as they did last year. I really, really hope they change that, but no matter what I do, in this formation, I can't cause that to happen. This guy likes shifting out wide a lot, occupying these spaces, preventing the runs being made anyway, and it's all just central here. These players are barely involved for me. I want to show off an example from last year where... So I've got Dino and Sterling as my wingers. It's Neymar at center forward. Florenzi and Musiala are my center mids. Now Neymar's dropped all the way back here, and Sterling, again, the left wing, already kind of starting more inside last year than he would this year. But look, he's occupying the striker position. Neymar's kind of cam. Dino's cut well inside though too. It's such a solid shape at the end. Again, I don't want players out here attacking, because I'm not really a goal threat from there. So I want them making these diagonal runs inside, which was happening last year, you can see. We'll have even more creativity on the next one here as we get the ball back. Sterling, remember, is my left wing. Not exactly playing left wing here, is he? So it's Musiala, who, because Sterling is, and Musiala is my right center mid, by the way, so he's moving over to left. Florenzi kind of, as the left center mid, occupies the space out here. They're all just freeform, they're rotating with each other, they're occupying other positions because those spots have been vacated, and so they're filling them. Sterling moves all the way across, as trying to get in behind, even as Dino's also occupying that space. This year, FC25, if this run's being made, this one's not being made. This is already occupied. It's prioritizing somebody else This is just going to be shut off. He's going to be stationary. He's just going to kind of like walk back down this way. But no, because there's a little gap, Sterling moves there. It prioritizes Dino moving inside and pushes Sterling out wide, which is great. There's a lot of creativity here. There's some unique passing angles. If I don't even predict this that well. If I do, then I can have like a phenomenal passing play that's really unique of players getting spots they don't normally get into. But all of a sudden, right center mid is kind of left forward, left wing is right wing is right forward. Center forward has dropped back to Cam. My CDM is pushed all the way up the field up here, and I've got both my fullbacks occupying their normal positions on the outside. There's just so much more creative movement being made here, and that happens all the time last year. I'm not going to spend too much time because that's last year's game rather than this year's, but that's what I'm trying to generate, is just this real free-form movement. Everybody's able to get into unique positions. Because I've got high dribblers in every position, they can dribble their way out of any situation. Can't do that this year. So instead, the formation that I found working is, instead of this being the shape, it's this being the shape. Which is really funny, because this, in my opinion, should occupy the spaces much worse. But I've been finding luck with the 4-3-3-4. So we're doing this shape instead. I don't know why this works. Part of it has to do with these players on deep lying playmaker. They're just staying back a little bit more. Maybe because they're further back, it's allowing this player to run inside. It's not prioritizing this guy to be in this spot, forcing him wide again. And again, last year, this would have been just fine. They would have done some creative stuff here. It doesn't matter. But this year, if that space is occupied, they won't move into it. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because these two are programmed to be more central. So this guy is allowed to move there, and because these two, without a CDM behind them, maybe without this guy, it tells them, hey, actually I do need to stay further back, not get into this space. Or this guy's attacking position is kind of here, which blocks these guys from making these runs, which means they're just kind of creative fulcrums from back here, which is fine. You just pass the ball here. You get your little creative movements like that. But maybe it's because this guy is meant to occupy this space, and sometimes this space, but not always. And when he's not making that run, that allows this guy to make this run inside. A nonsense to me, for what it's worth. Like, the game should not be programmed this way. But this formation is just allowing me to accomplish a very similar idea with the pivot on the other end. So the build-up is not quite as strong. I'm not quite as press resistant because I'm not able to just kind of, triangle pass Barcelona 2010 style through the midfield here, get out of every situation, and then move down the field. And even when I did that in this formation, it's just kind of out wide, and then you're just doing this every time. It's a little bit riskier as I'm trying to do this. This pins the opposition back a little bit more. It's not like you're encouraging the pressure out here, so you can get forward a little bit easier, but your movement is always kind of like this pass, maybe that one out, and then here, and then this guy will actually make a run inside, and then you get the overlap, and that's kind of how you move down the field. Again, not sure why the game is programmed like this as it is, and for what it's worth, it's not solely these players staying back, because I did deep lying playmaker. I've done box to box, trying to have them just central, but get down like this. I've done playmaker attack, which is more just kind of that way, but still supposed to be central with a little ability to move wide, but mostly like this zone instead of a little bit narrower of a zone. And both of those cause these players to stay wide because it's prioritizing these players to be in the midfield instead. But when I do deep lying playmaker on these ones, so they're just kind of supposed to stay that way instead of occupying the zone for these players to move into, when I did that, you know what it prioritized? This one. I could not believe it. I am just flabbergasted that that's what the programming prioritizes. But for some reason, I always had this underlapping run from the fullbacks, which, again, these guys are prioritized over this guy being the actual attacker getting in the space. Maybe it's just the runs from deep are really effective. I don't know if there's a way to tell him to start deeper and then move through. Maybe I can accomplish what I want with a 4-1-4-1. Maybe the deeper run from here would cause them to do this diagonal move inside. I'm not sure. I haven't tried that one. I mostly want to use wingers rather than wide mids, though, so it's this formation, it's just I like the depth of it, because when you're here, it's a much flatter line, which means, like, I can't really make this pass unless it's in the air. I'm blocked off with some of my passing lanes by my other midfielders. when they're further forward, I've got a much better passing opportunity between those two, at least when they cut inside. So again, really frustrating, but the solution has just been flip the pivot, which makes you, of course, a little bit less defensively solid. You're missing your defensive mid here now, but it's accomplishing so much more of what I want. So to get into the in-game tactics of it, we're looking to set up like this. I'm unbalanced. I haven't experimented too much with short passing. Balance has been working for me, but I will probably try out both. But for now, balance is highly recommended for what I've been doing. The code is going to be up top there if you want to view it now. But let's get into the player roles. So balance on the wingers. I just found, oops, that tool's not going to do what I wanted here. That's a shame. But the wingers are, I think, just much more accessible on balance. When they're on attack, they're just they stay a little bit more wide, but then they're also, when they're getting in behind, they're just kind of caught by the back line. It's too hard to pass it to them. They're too close to the defenders. When they're on roaming, it's just a little bit unpredictable. They're involved really well in some attacks, but too poorly in a lot of other attacks. So balance just kind of keeps them the most accessible most times. You don't necessarily need them to make brilliant runs. You just need them to be able to be passed to, because they're your best dribblers normally. So you get it to them, you know, you can have them just in this little pocket of space, and then they can create a chance from there. Not necessarily having them getting behind all the time, but just be accessible. The attacking wingback instruction actually stays on the stays wide for these ones, rather than being prioritized and moving into the middle here. Shadow Striker in the cam. I think of every role plus in this formation, having the actual Shadow Striker plus or plus plus is the most important. Having a non-Shadow Striker midfielder there, I think, significantly hampers their attacking movement. They're just not able to be passed through as much, and they barely make runs forward. Having the actual ability to make runs sometimes is really important for that player. And then target forward, this is the big change. Shout out to Jay Bohemian from my chat for mentioning this. I would have never looked at it, because target forward is just like, I think your Didier Drogba's, and actually for my club, Serhou Guirassy is doing it right now, and he's doing it really well. He does drop back, but I think of it being more of your physical type striker, whereas false 9 is supposed to be your Messis, your Griezmanns, your Dybalas. But actually what the false 9 does is far more than prioritizing staying central, they go wide. Sometimes it's a little bit deeper. Normally it's just kind of along the front line. They stay up here and just drift wide from there, which hampers your wide attackers' ability to cut inside, because they're already occupying that space. But the target man, you can see, and it does do this in game, is just significantly more central, barely out wide here. Don't know why they've programmed it like that. This is fun, like target forward is allowed to be programmed here, but false 9, they need to have a build-up option and an attack option, or a central option and a wide option. It's really frustrating to me that, like, oops, advance forward will have 2 different options. Target forward has 3, false 9 has none. Why, game? That's, anyway. Last year we had so much more actual creativity with the options we could select. But yeah, target forward balance is by far what I've been thinking works the most, or works the best. You can see with the Shadow Striker, they will sometimes stay central and then sometimes run wide, which if the target forward is dropping off, they can make that little run just on the outside of the striker and get into the half spaces there. And then when they're not making that run, they're just kind of staying more accessible. Then you are getting these players pushed inside by these ones overlapping. These ones will move inside. The deep lying playmaker is, I think, really important here. If you're late in the game, you can try like a playmaker roaming maybe, have them be a little bit further forward. But honestly, I think deep lying playmaker is important to stem counterattacks. They just stay a little bit further back. Obviously, you've got your wingbacks pushing all the way up the field. So you need that pivot of just being able to pass it back to them and hold on to the ball when you get up the field and then realize you don't have any options. And you also need somebody to stem your counterattacks. But I think holding is just going to be a little bit too defensive. They don't open up the passing lanes as well. So I definitely recommend deep lying playmaker there. Everything else is kind of like center back dependent. I hear stopper is really bad because they actually push out too much, but ball playing or normal defender, I think both have been fine. So whichever plus or plus role you have there. I believe that's all with that. I do want to mention here, So if you remember from the one clip I showed of last year's game, Sawa was actually kind of pushed up here, my 6, which means I had a lot of players up here. Believe it or not, this was pretty hard to counterattack because it was just so hard for the opponent to get through. There's so many players in the way here for you to actually get, down the field with. So it's a really effective counter-pressing thing. But there's a lot of free roam stuff being made here. Not so much from Sawa, she stayed really central, which was great for build-up, but she pushed so far up the field still that she was a great passing option. This year, instead of forming this shape, you're kind of more in this shape, usually. Sometimes they will adjust. But the defender's shape is pretty much the same. From last year to this year, both have been like this low block, sometimes even closer together, where it's like maybe 5 yards or so between them. And then the whole challenge of the game is just causing this shape to go into one with a little bit more width. You're just trying to pull somebody out or turn them from a flat line to a non-flat line, so you've got a gap to get in through. But because the defensive shape is the same, but my attacking shape has changed, it's just, I've got nothing going on here. Like every time I pass the ball back to my 6 here, like I might have this pass through her, and then there's nothing. It's way too long for this player to make a run, or they don't. This player just doesn't even make this run inside like they were last year, and they're not doing any of the free roam stuff. But if they get anywhere, they'll get here, and by the time I actually make that pass forward, they're too surrounded. Whereas last year, they'd actually like make this run and drop back off to get in a little more space, force this player just to guard that run and then kind of like use that as a fake and get into the space there. A myriad of other things. Last year was just very effective for me, but partially because I had so many attacking options up here. When they're deeper, like it's fine for build up, and I guess it means I can do this a little bit easier. But it's so much harder to actually transition from the midfield line to the attacking line. So I'm always stuck back here. And when the ball's up here, I actually don't have the option to go back to the 6 like I did last year. Or sometimes she'd be up here, and I'd have this pass down. Now, just way further back. So what the 4-3-3 attack does instead, when we're doing a little bit more that shape, is now pretty much everyone is always accessible for a pass. I don't have the safe outlet where if I need to hold the ball like somewhere else or bait somebody else out, I don't have this like really safe, always open option when going from maybe like here to here to here back. But remember, when I'm saying the ball's up here, I was never having this passing option anyway. This pass just wasn't open. They're too deep. They're not accomplishing anything. And I still have this pass back if I need to. But it's just like every move, there's at least one additional attacker, and that's all the difference in this game. Because the attacking AI isn't generating chances for you, everything has to come from creative passing movement or little dribbles to pull your opponents out. Everything, like I mean everything. The attacking AI really doesn't do it for you. Except this formation, like it's better. It's still not like scoring goals for me, but it's allowing me to score some of my more creative ones. Because I've just got that additional attacker or additional passing lane every attack, then I'm just so much more effective on offense rather than having a whole additional player locked off with none of my players getting into the positions I want them to anyway. So I found this one to be really effective. Now to show off some moments of the 4-3-3 holding, why I'm just having to move away from it, why it's not working. You remember the clips from last year I showed earlier on? Like my winger would have already been, instead of all the way down here, would have been in this position, or sometimes this position. My center mids, they've swapped a little bit here. He's supposed to be there, he's supposed to be over here. But as it is, like, they would have already been much further down the field. They're so slow here. They're so far back. And then we watch Neymar finally kind of cut inside, but not even inside of the fullback. Like, remember last year, this guy would have been getting all the way across the field. Francescoli probably would have dropped off as the center forward, which would have made space for like this run all the way here. I would have had to run here. I would have had the fullback actually overlapping. I would have had my just to fully show, my players would have been like here already. Keep in mind, my players. Let's do it on the mini map down there. Actually, you'll be able to see. My players would have been kind of there, up here. Here, much more, something like that, if you're able to see at the bottom of the screen there. So in comparison, instead of here, this guy's back here. Instead of here, this guy's back here. My CDM's at least 5 yards further back. One of my center mids is 8 yards further back. And nobody appears in the right spot. And as I'm trying to attack, well, Franciscoli is forced entirely behind the back line. I don't know what these runs being made are. Kind of comes back to be supported. But even by now, I've got, like, this is kind of the right shape. Almost, except I still want more supporting runs being made. The runs are so stationary. It was like this run, and then it's kind of like this run, and then he can't make up his mind what he's doing. Last year would have been like, I'll fake run, I'll move back this way, I'll do another fake, I'll move over this way, I'll move back. You know, there would have been so much more creativity with what they're doing. I also would have had, like, she's too far back here. She would have been a little bit further to connect. Guerrero is way back. He would have been back here. And I would have had my CDM. I probably would have just passed it back to the CDM and then done something like that. But as it is, I'm just like... I might have had this pass down to Neymar. I'm just worried about it being offside. But I'm now attacking, instead of last year where it's like 5, 6v6 in a lot of these situations, this is now 3v6 here. Got the opponent's 6, I've just got my 3. I'm just having no attacking luck in every situation. I'm kind of able to be creative sometimes with the dribbles, but that's all I have, so it's just resorting to skill moves every time. Or little give and goes like that, but that's all manually cued. We'll have another example here. Just look at Rafinha up there. You can just see him beyond the scoreboard. He's just running away from... He's calling for it. He's raising his arm. It's really funny to me. But he's just like... He's running into the space that the fullback's already also running into. And you watch the fullback partially turns around because I'm going back here. But I've just got no support. This is off my own goal kick and nobody's moving, nobody's coming. Like, that was a manually called run to move him inside there. But every situation, I'm just stuck with players so far wide in that 4-3-3 holding. Even on a move like this where I'm able to do something, it's nowhere near what I'm actually wanting to accomplish. Let's see, way too wide again. Rafinha actually does come short for once, because he fakes the run forward, which allows him to get a little more space coming back. I spot that, because that will pass over. Because I dribble with him so far inside, Kimmich is kind of making the run on the outside. But this is still nowhere near the shape I actually want. Everybody's so far away. And we'll watch Neymar on the other side. Kind of goes inside, runs back outside. And I think, again, it's just prioritizing my center mid. You'll watch him there, kind of making the run. He's completely covered. But I think the existence of the center mid running into that space is what's telling Neymar, no, somebody else is going to occupy the space in the middle here. I'm going to have to be the one to occupy the width. Even as this run's not being made, you'll see him just kind of jog forward here. I think this far back is still telling him, no, don't go into this space. Whereas last year, oh, there were so many attacking options. But to look at the 4-3-3 attack instead. Now again, this new formation isn't perfect, and it's a little bit hard to defend with. But it'll still tell Neymar, you can watch on the wing here, way out to the side. But he's going to cut way more inside than he ever did in my other formation. Look, this is the perfect position I want him occupying. And I don't know if it's, again, because it's the center mid that's, like, for some reason, this one has the fullback programmed correctly, where this run is being made, which encourages him to go, oh, okay, this space is occupied, I can go here. And this run's also not being made, which means the space is open. But for the first time, like, I actually have a run. Like, I don't want him so wide, I want him here, because I don't prioritize attacking AI runs. I prioritize having my players in positions I can pass to and just do dribbles with forever. But this technically works. Like, keep the fullback a little bit further wide, and because there's more of a gap opened here, you can run into it later. So it's not what I want, but it still accomplishes something useful. And obviously Dybala, 4-star or 3-star weak foot, unable to make that pass. But this is already such a better attacking opportunity from one of my wingers cutting inside than anything I got in the other formation. This is just a second later. Cancelo already kind of being told to run inside. You look, Kimmich making the run on the other side. Rafinha's already moved, again, not perfectly inside. I don't want him level with the fullback. I want him here. But this is already leagues better than how he's positioning with the other formation. Because it's prioritizing Kimmich on the other end. Now I've got a little pocket of space here. instead of only getting this shape when I'm here, when it's already kind of blocked off, the defensive line is too set, it's here. So I'm not only generating here, I'm generating it earlier on in the play with a little bit more of a pocket of space. He's this distance away instead of just this distance, which is much harder. I actually have a passing lane here. I don't take it, but Dybala makes that little run from deep, which is something I never got from my center mid. You saw that again in the EAFC 24 clips, where the center mids would make that run. Center mids don't make that run this year, but the cam will. Yeah, a little lucky with a long shot, but like that run from deep ability. Players actually making movements off of each other, generating little bits of space for everybody else to move into. So much better than anything else I've used this year. Now again, I want to stress, the attacking AI isn't perfect like this. But we'll see another example of Neymar. They start wide, they start wider than I want, but technically the shape is fine. And now as Cancelo successfully completes his run on the outside, Neymar moves all the way inside. Now, the main takeaway I want you to have from this video, no matter what formation you play, is that whole who's occupying what space, and is that the reason that you're not getting the runs you want. So this is maybe the clearest example I've seen all year. We're just gonna let this clip play twice. And watch what Cancelo does here. And watch what Neymar does. And then watch what Cancelo does. So here, Neymar, a little bit accessible of a pass. I think defensively he just kind of came short a little bit. I take the dribble inside, which opens up a massive gap on the inside. Cancelo is told by the attacking AI system to move to the outside. That kind of allows Neymar to stay inside. But once I turn back with him, I'm not occupying the space up here anymore. Watch Neymar. Oh, this is the space I want to go into. I'm going to go all the way touchline. No, man, I don't want that. I want you to stay closer, stay accessible. I want my little passing triangles and all that. This is infuriating to me. But then, as Neymar's told, this is where the gap is. I'm going to move all the way to the outside. It's Cancelo who makes an underlapping run, which again, I don't want. And last year, you could put the instruction on. Are they overlapping or underlapping? Inverted. This year, you don't have that instruction. But when you're looking at your own formation, your own tactical setup, like we'll watch Rafinha here. Rafinha's inside. He's touchline like Neymar will be. It's the existence of Kimmich on the outside and this formation actually allowing this to happen that means Rafinha ever moves inside at all. As Cancelo is told to be the one on the outside again, Neymar's the one moving back on the inside. Not 10, 20 seconds later in this clip, got the exact same concept. Kimmich is way on the inside. Rafinha's pushed way on the outside. Now, Dybala is told to be the one making a run through here, and we'll watch Neymar not get into that space at all. You'll remember the FC24 clips from earlier on, where they absolutely were allowed to make runs towards the similar spots, or instead of just kind of generally holding your position, he might go and replace the one back here. Nope. Not in this situation. So I'm just stuck with my player being so wide because I'm only allowed to have one player making a run at the time, or making a run at a time. So yeah, the whole thing this year I think is occupying space. If you're doing a 4-4-2 and this guy never moves inside, think about if this player's too far forward. Think about if this player's occupying that space too much. Think about if this player ever takes up that space and allows this player to move inside. If you want this guy to cut inside, you're either going to have to A, find a way to have this guy to drop off, B, find a way for him to take the replacement out wide and have this guy move inside, or C, find a way to get this guy to make an overlap as the fullback and tell this guy, okay, somebody else is outside, I can move inside. But this would never happen if this guy is occupying the space instead, because there's just no movement like that at all this year. And if this guy is occupying that space and this guy doesn't move inside, this guy also won't overlap. They're just stuck here. So you've really got to think, which players do I want to stay back to allow other runs to be made? Which players do I want to occupy maybe some more stationary positions because I just want, my passing option to always be there? Which players do I want maybe to be a little more creative with their runs? They can get outside. They're not just stuck on the inside. But you can't, like this year, you can't have a formation of all players attacking, which is what it did last year, because they're just going to occupy the same zones and then force somebody to stay back. So you're going to have to sacrifice somebody to stay back. Just think about what position you want them to occupy, and is that going to allow the other players to get into the spots that you want. Now, hopefully that all does help you. Hopefully, if you decide to give this formation a test, that it's something you find as interesting as I have recently. There are some things I haven't experimented with. You can try maybe a target forward plus on this player, or you can try your advanced forward if you've got somebody really good at that, but I'm really enjoying this target forward. You can experiment with roaming attack. I think balance is the right one to start with, but you can experiment with it. More defensively, if you're maybe later in a game and you want to hold on to a lead, you can experiment with maybe false back or something like that. Just give you infinite passing opportunities through the middle, really. But as it is, you can also try just wing back, which means they're not quite as aggressive, but they'll hold generally the shape you want. I still really like my attacking wing back. But yeah, this is, somebody did ask in the other video, this is generally the shape that it will hold, the with ball shape. But again, this is all I'll have for this video. I will be using this for a while and put out some more videos on it, maybe some tips or tricks with it, do a future review, but this is my kind of introductory review for it. Hopefully you enjoyed. Leave any comments if you got questions for me. I do appreciate all the feedback. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.